Neoshadowing. Is freezing your eggs worth it? In Australia, egg freezing has become big business as clinics target young women worried about their fertility. But has something gone awry when Australians in their early 20s are deciding to undergo the expensive, invasive procedure? Today, 7/3 reporter rain and shine on the risks involved and whether it's really worth it. Rihanna, you've been looking at the surge in the number of young Australian women freezing their eggs, and it's not an exaggeration to say there's been a really big jump in the numbers. Yeah, that's right. It's been fascinating. The number of women who freeze their eggs tripled in 5 years to 2020. And I think the part of this in the societal shift, so people settling it down later in their life, pushing back parenting to their mid to late 30s, when our biology remains largely the same. Okay, so to gain a better understanding of what's behind this surge, you spoke to a number of women who are choosing to do this. Is what insight did you gain from them? Yes, I spoke to the women aged from 24 to 40 about their decision to egg freeze. I think the overall sense again is women know that the older they get, the less chance they have of getting pregnant. If you look at the data, the number of first-time mothers ages over 30 has been rising in the 80s. Something like 50% of first-time mothers was aged over 30. Now it's almost 53%, so that's more than half of Australian women having their first baby over 30. One woman I spoke to was AFL's player Jessica Saginary Door. She's a story too. She is currently single, and as you can imagine, being a football artist, there's not confused to pregnancy. She knows she wants to have a family one day. She's not ready to get her career yet. I first my eggs because I'm an athlete and I just wanted to put this time to my career. It was something that I knew and wanted to for quite some time. So it was a hard decision to make, but it was definitely a hard part of process. So she went about the process to freeze her eggs. She was told 15 eggs would be an ideal number for her to have a 80% success rate of having one child in the future. But she only managed to get 10. She now has 10 eggs on ice. She spent $11,500 on that process. And she said, I'm really happy with 10 eggs. But, now I'm grappling with whether to spend another 11.5 grand to get more eggs to give me a better chance at this baby in the future. And not many people have that kind of money sitting around. Obviously, having to make the next decision on whether I decide to do this again and spend another 11.5 grand and whether I can afford it right now is a little bit heartbreaking and hard to process and big decision to make. That's a lot of money. It's expensive procedure. But not only that, it's not an easy thing to go through, is it? Certainly not. Egg freezing is the first part of the IVF process, so woman has to inject herself with hormones over several days. in the lead up to surgical procedure to extract as many eggs as possible. Those eggs are then frozen so they can be thawed at some point in the future and fertilized with sperm to become an embryo. So after the eggs been ice, then you're going through the IVF process that the $1,000 again. Basically, the more eggs you get, the better your chance. It's probability game in that sense. I spoke to another woman, Alice Michelle. She's a 36 years old Sydney woman. I didn't actually know what was involved when I started the process, but it was a lot more than I thought it was gonna to be. It was like invasive, I guess. I never done before. I really know what was involved. I never spoke to anyone about it. She was quite sick during the process as well from the hormone drugs, which is something that can happen. And after going through all of that, she ended up with just 5 eggs on ice. When I came out of the theaters, the doctor came to see me. She says she thought they're gonna get a lot more eggs, but they retrieved 9 and only 5 of them were fibers. So that means that 4 of them have to be discarded. They one of good quality. Gosh, and I said before, you sort of need 15 eggs to be frozen to give you an 80% chance of having one child in the future. So 5 eggs is not a great chance there. No. Not only that, I mean, you mentioned $11,000, but you also have to pay to store the eggs, I presume. That's right. It's roughly $500 a year in storage fees. So you're weighing of these things out because the younger you do it, perhaps the better quality of your eggs and the better luck you'll have retrieving more eggs in one cycle. But at the same time, the more years you're going to be paying in annual storage fees, and the less likely you are to ever go back for those eggs. So in Jessica Sesnor's case, $11,500 for something that she see as being really necessary for her to continue with her career, she actually argues that the AFL should be paying for this process. As female athletes, I think we sacrifice a lot. We are kind of delayed in setting ourselves for us future in terms of our career. Takes a little bit longer, so just another kind of financial hit back we're having to take to able to put our career first. It's not without precedence, egg freezing is a work part in some companies, particularly speaking in the States. A lot of the US firms offer to cover the costs to help women stay in the workforce longer. So things like the big ones, Apple, Google, Facebook. It's unclear how many Australian firms are offering this, but it is happening more and more. Okay, that's really interesting, isn't it? It's the worry part. So let's look at what's happening for women here, and some really young women who say, in their 20s, they are choosing to have their eggs frozen. You mentioned, of course, that women are choosing to have children late in life, and that is one factor. But what else is going on to see these surges and the number of women doing this? Another thing that drove really surges was COVID. We're all bit about how long we've been locked down. There was certainly no dating going on, and some women thought putting their eggs on ice might be the best solution for them. Let's talk egg freezing. I'm partnering up with Monash IVF, who are going to help me freeze my eggs. there's also targeted ads on social media that celebrities talking about this more and more. Social media influences, in some cases, they are partnering with IVF clinic and they're essentially promoting the apps. So this research I have heard so many glowing recommendations, so many beautiful stories about people's experiences. It's a big step. It's a big scary step. I know myself, one doctor in particular who I spoke to, Dr. Tamara Hunter, was quite concerned about the rise and rise of marketing in this space, mainly because she said, whilst information provision is very good and women should be aware of fertility issues and have some plans about their fertility, she said, the line is when it's made to look very simple or straightforward, glamorous or easy because it's just simply not. It seems all rosy, but that is absolutely not the case, and that's one of the pieces of information we must get across to young women. This is not a guarantee. We can't now 100% guarantee you to have a baby, let alone a family, from the acts you've risen. So, Raina, this is sleek advertisements. It's been advertised on social media. Influences are involved. They make it out like an easy things to do, and more women are doing it. One of the other problems is, of course, this success rate. It's not that great, isn't? Yeah, and part of the reason is that fewer than 1 in 10 women are actually returning for these eggs. I've been told by some of doctors I interviewed. And then of course it depends also on your age at the time you freeze them and how many eggs you put on ice. And that depends really on how much money you have to spend on the process. But UK statistics suggest a birth success rate of around 18% for women using their own eggs. And according to IVF Australia, egg freezing is unlikely to lead to pregnancy women older than 38. So a little bit doctors spoke to have said that women really need to go into this process with their eyes wide open about the success rates. I certainly see a lot of women, female couples over the age of 40 who are struggling to conceive and have very little understanding of how limited their success rates are. To really tricky balance, isn't it, Rhiannon, for women? You know, wanting to have the career, wanting to have a family, it's so hard. Young women have to go through high school and that early to mid 20, having only been told really how not to get pregnant, and then you're being hit with targeting ads about your biological clock. The message a lot of these doctors want to get across as well is while you maybe don't need to panic about freezing your eggs necessarily without giving careful consideration to success rates, the cost, the financial and physical toll, it is a good thing to, especially if you're concerned, maybe have a blood test, check your family history, and find out about your personal fertility status, and then you can make a bit of a plan about your future family plan. We're in Shine is a reporter with 730. You can catch her two-part reports on iView. One of Australia's largest fertility clinic, Monash IVF, says its pay partnership with social influences are about opening up conversations around fertility. This episode was produced by Veronica Appad and Sam Dunn, who also did the mix. Our supervising producer is Stephen Smiling. I'm Sam Holly. To get in touch with the team, please email us on abcnewsdaily@abc.net.au. Thanks for listening.